There is no explosion, no warning, no visible disaster. But within seconds of an electromagnetic pulse in the upper atmosphere, every critical system on Earth begins to collapse silently. A sudden disturbance moves through the upper atmosphere. At a speed no human senses can perceive, no warning system can interpret in real time, and no infrastructure is designed to visibly acknowledge before it is already too late to respond. On the surface, cities still appear functional for a brief moment, but beneath that surface, synchronization is already breaking. What makes this type of event uniquely dangerous is not destruction in the traditional sense, but the silent disruption of systems that were never designed to operate independently. The first and most critical failure occurs inside the high-voltage transformer network that forms the backbone of every national power grid. When a geomagnetic disturbance interacts with Earth's magnetic field, it induces long-range electrical currents across transmission lines spanning entire regions. These currents behave like unwanted direct current injected into alternating current systems, pushing transformer cores into magnetic saturation. Once saturation begins, overheating and voltage instability spread rapidly. Protective systems activate to prevent physical damage, but in doing so, they fragment the grid into isolated electrical islands. Power does not simply disappear, it becomes disconnected, uncoordinated, and uncontrollable at scale. Electricity may still exist in pockets, but the system that moves it has already broken. As electrical infrastructure fragments, communication systems begin their silent failure. Satellites, cellular towers, fiber networks, and timing systems operate as a synchronized digital ecosystem dependent on precise time alignment. Satellite disruption can degrade signal reliability, while ground infrastructure loses power almost immediately. But the deeper failure is synchronization drift. Modern networks depend on shared timing to validate every communication. When that timing becomes inconsistent, systems stop recognizing data as valid, not because they are overloaded, but because they no longer agree on when events are happening. Communication does not slow down. It loses coherence. Information becomes fragmented, delayed, or rejected entirely. The result is informational isolation, where people can only trust what is immediately in front of them. The third system to degrade is water distribution. Urban water infrastructure depends on continuous pumping, pressurization, and chemical treatment. When power fails, pumps stop, and internal pressure begins to collapse. Once pressure drops below external environmental levels, pipelines become vulnerable to contamination through microfractures and structural joints. Treatment plants lose the ability to regulate disinfection accurately, making water quality unreliable even before full depletion occurs. Water does not immediately disappear, but its safety becomes uncertain. In dense urban systems, this degradation accelerates quickly due to interdependency, while simpler systems fail more gradually, but still inevitably. The fourth system is fuel production and distribution, a highly automated industrial chain that depends on continuous electronic control. Refineries require stable regulation of temperature and chemical processes. Pipelines depend on powered valves and real-time sensor feedback. Fuel stations rely entirely on electrical pumps and digital systems. The critical failure is not scarcity, but inaccessibility. Fuel remains physically present in the system, but the infrastructure required to move it stops functioning. Even backup generators cannot sustain long-term operation without resupply chains that are themselves frozen. Mobility collapses not because energy disappears, but because its distribution network no longer operates. As these four systems fail simultaneously, the collapse becomes interdependent. Power failure prevents communication recovery. Communication failure slows grid stabilization. Water instability increases pressure on emergency infrastructure already losing mobility. Fuel immobilization prevents repair logistics from scaling. Each failure reinforces the next, creating a cascading feedback loop of declining system resilience. Modern infrastructure was optimized for efficiency and continuous operation, not for isolation under extreme electromagnetic stress. Integration becomes vulnerability when the connecting layer disappears. At ground level, the experience is deceptively quiet. There is no single moment of collapse, only the gradual disappearance of expected functionality. Lights fail in uneven patterns. Communication becomes intermittent. Water pressure drops unpredictably. Transportation slows. Hospitals lose synchronized coordination between departments. Emergency systems begin operating with incomplete data. The collapse is not recognized as one event. It is experienced as many unrelated failures happening at once. Within hours, a second layer emerges: human behavior under informational uncertainty. Without reliable communication, decisions are made on fragmented and incomplete signals, not through chaos alone, but through misalignment. Localized confusion spreads because coordination structures no longer exist to unify perception. The failure becomes behavioral as much as technical, as people react to partial reality without access to the full system picture. The most critical misunderstanding about an electromagnetic pulse or geomagnetic event is not the initial disruption, but the duration that follows. Recovery is not immediate because the systems required for repair depend on the same infrastructure that has been degraded. Communication cannot coordinate restoration without stable timing. Power cannot fully stabilize without synchronization. Water and fuel systems cannot support large-scale logistics without functioning distribution. The result is not total destruction in a moment, but prolonged partial functionality across disconnected systems. Civilization does not collapse in a single event. It unthreads through its dependencies, quietly, systematically, and without a single point of failure that can be reversed quickly. What makes this scenario uniquely dangerous is not what is destroyed, but what remains partially functional without the ability to reconnect. And in that gap between capability and coordination, modern life reveals its most fragile truth. It was never built to survive without its invisible connections. When the systems go silent, it is not electricity that fails first. It is the illusion that they were ever truly separate.